So, welcome to this week's JSR meeting. It's May 15th, 2025. We have no special agenda today. We will just continue going through the issues like we did last week, except if anyone has any topics they want to bring up, which I guess is no. All right. Let me share my screen. There we go. This entire screen. All right. Okay. Let's see. Where did we leave off last time? I think somewhere around here. Let me do a quick check. Last week we left off at yes, here it is. 290. Okay. Okay. All right then. So we left off at 290. So this time around, we'll continue. We have 291, request support markdown footnotes and readmes. Doable. It's not exactly something we can do too easily because we use a project called Comrack, and they seem to be relatively stuck on the ideas and features they currently implement themselves. Or rather, they want to stick to only the core things compliant to the common mark spec, and I believe footnotes might not be part of this. Yes, exactly. So this would be something that either is an available plugin for Combrack, or we would have to implement ourselves, which both solutions would be accepted, but it's low priority. So at some point we will work on this, but if anyone wants to do this, they're more than welcome. Also, if anyone has any comments at any point or any other questions unrelated, just feel free to interrupt. Then we have score should have hard items to improve library quality. So the let's see, the score should try to gamify the developers into reaching better code quality. Having more items in there trying to be better than before should improve overall quality of libraries on JSR. Let's see. So running lint, that could work potentially, but maybe. Let's see what has been discussed. Yeah, I wouldn't want to touch the TypeScript changes, TypeScript modifiers. That can cause all kinds of issues. Coverage is going to be difficult. Let's see. We'll consider adding more items into this code in the future. Right now, the docs requirement make it already challenging to get 100% for existing packages. we may consider adding more items in the future. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about this. We always will be happy to add more scoring criteria if they make sense and are not too heavy of a burden on the system. I think the ones we have right now are quite reasonable, and yeah, not too demanding. And again, as Luca pointed out, getting 100% already seems to be a challenge overall for the ecosystem. I mean, I can go to this page and we can see it's very, very varied with only 2 packages on this list even having 100%. So, yeah. Yeah, seems like not a high priority thing, but honestly, right now. There's other things more important, and yeah, it needs a plan. First, needs to decide what we even want to do. All right, next page. Can I publish CSS to JSR? Answer is no. That's a simple answer. This requires some changes in Dino to support more attribute types for imports, which is something that has been discussed recently and potentially will make it. But it's not potentially, it's more like it's a matter of time. But this obviously is a clear blocker for JSR, as people want to publish front-end packages, and those often tend to have CSS style imports or type imports. And yeah, we should definitely work on this to unblock people, but this is not a trivial thing and not something we necessarily would want external people to work on this, because this involves going into Dino AST potentially, Dino graph for sure, and other of the Dino traits in deep. So that seems a bit of a complicated, involved task that we already partially discussing and working on. So for now, leaving as needs plan. Optional peer dependencies don't work. Yeah, not sure. A bug. David's assigned. Not sure more what to say here. A suggestion: include README and license files by default when publishing. It looks as though the user must manually configure the inclusion of the README and license per filtering files. NPM will automatically include these, which I think is pretty reasonable by default. Makes this up here quite surprising that it's not often a user will have a README license in the root of directory, not intending for them to be published alongside the module. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, if it's listed in your git ignore, I think it's reasonable that we don't include those files necessarily. Obviously, if you exclude them manually with an exclude entry, I would say that yeah, it should be excluded as well, except if you do a manual include. So I think the behavior we have right now is actually correct and reasonable. I might be misunderstanding this though, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case. Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on this? Or am I...
Hey Leo, I
Hey,
think I
yeah.
think Rye had this idea. I think Rye had this idea a long time ago, right?
Um,
I feel like we've discussed this before, but a long time ago.
really? I can't remember this. But maybe, yeah.
Um, I can't. I'm trying to remember the use case. Someone there was a specific use case in which this would have saved some time or something, but I can't remember exactly what it was.
Hmm.
And I think maybe we never came to a conclusion on it. But
Okay. Interesting.
maybe Luca remembers. Maybe Luca remembers.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna search through our Slack real quick.
Doctor says, I don't know about the README, but the license is from my experience. But I mean, if you exclude the license manually using the exclude properties or via your git ignore, you shouldn't be doing that. A and if you're not doing that, then it should be included. If not, that's definitely a bug.
Okay, I found the thread about this.
Oh, okay.
So so this was so Rai wanted to automatically include the MIT license or just any license by default in JSR.json or whatever the config file is because he wanted to have it as part of his Dino 2 demo. So this was
Oh,
like last September.
okay. This is old content. But
Yeah,
yeah.
because he says that if the license wasn't part of the thing by default, he would have to spend 20 seconds of his demo to do touch license and then explain that to the audience and then publish.
Fair enough. Yeah, but this seems
So it's like,
not this, from what I
yeah,
understand. So, yeah, I'm a bit confused about this one. I'll keep it open for next time to discuss when the Lucas are around then. Search rank unpublished, ranks unpublished packages first. Yep, I am working currently on improving our search a bit. So, uh, stay tuned for that. Better module search again. Now these are additional filters, which we currently are not gonna be working on, but if anyone wants to work on adding more filters, I think Luca mentioned this last time we had a meeting as well, which was about a score filter. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, and tags are, I think there's a separate issue for that. Um, that's something we also want once we get to that. But yeah, overall, I am working on search improvements, so this is somewhat underway. Um, deprecated messages not showing up on the overview symbol page. So yeah, this is currently not showing. I wonder if a deprecated message should take priority in the overview page, even if there is like an actual body. Um, and the deprecated message will show regardless if instead of that. I think that's reasonable approach. So quickly write that. Welcome. Let's see the content in the overview. Right at the no available. Should show the deprecated message instead if that is available. This is not too difficult of an issue. This would be upstream and doc. If anyone wants to work on this, go ahead. If you want pointers, let me know. Then How should you indicate that your package has peer dependencies? Yeah, this gets deep into discussion of peer dependencies in Dino and crates. So this is quite an involved discussion that also is something we have been discussing internally as well. So I'm gonna hold off on applying to this one as there is stuff around discussion around this going on in Dino itself as well, and that will affect this too. So for now, skipping. How should you use your input mat if you're not using Dino? Bartek was pinged but never did anything, so keep this open and mention Bartek to look into it again. Support modifying global types. This is a long old discussion. This definitely needs this is a tricky one. This is a highly demanded one. Not too sure what this would involve and what we need to do for this. So I'll bring this up with I guess David, since that David would be in charge of something like this. We have discussed it a few times. I think in various different issues as well, and also in um, internal meetings. It's definitely something we need to figure out because people do want to do this. But if I remember correctly, it was quite complicated. But I would say this is one of the bigger blockers for JSR. Adoptions and many packages do stuff like this, as terrible as it is. So yeah, this will needs a plan, but it's high priority. So I'll just bring this up again internally. Fast check unable to infer type from return expression. This fast check issue, skipping that David's assigned. ETS files are getting ignored when entry point is a JS file. That just needs documentation work. Again, David's assigned. Support login via passkeys. So JSR currently only supports login via GitHub user. GitHub is private for proof of content, and this has a lot of negative effect. We mentioned this a few meetings ago already. We use GitHub extensively internally as well, like internally in JSR, for making requests to GitHub. So we need to have the user be a GitHub account with an associated GitHub ID to do some actions, because we don't have a GitHub API key, and even if we have one, we would be getting rate limited. So we use the user token for some things. For example, if I go to a random package on JSR, let's see, random package, and I go to the scopes members, this loading you saw is making a fetch request to GitHub's API to get the actual GitHub name to then link to the GitHub page of the specified user. And doing that with our own API token would not be viable. So we currently don't have a way we can do JSR without using GitHub. I mean, I guess alternatively we could just not display that if you're not using a GitHub account, but that seems quite terrible. So we need to find some solution around this. To then also support like GitLab and other kinds of accounts. Passkeys as suggested here. It also makes our infrastructure a bit more complicated since everything is concepted around GitHub. So very low priority, quite complicated to do. Packages with a stable release according to Semver isn't usable. Yeah, we need to figure a way around unstable versioning, as mentioned in a previous meeting. Package headers should have minimum heights, and nav doesn't move. Okay. Me and John actually were going through the design of JSR last week a bit, in hope to do a bit of a design refresh and unification of some things, because some UI elements on JSR just are out of place. For example, this navigation bar does not fit in with the rest of the style of JSR. It feels very out of place. And while we were doing that, we were also discussing exactly this. So yeah, this will be getting worked on in the near future. I just need to sit down again with Sean and look at our design and see what we can improve. Add other IDC providers like GitD and GitLab. This comes down to the same aforementioned issue. Gotta use GitHub on JSR currently. How to integrate with change set. Is the documentation recipe file change set can publish to JSR? What is change set? Does everyone have any familiarity with change set? Seems I don't think there's anything we can do here. This seems more like change set needs to support us in some way or another. Again, not entirely sure what change sets is and how it works under the hood. Yeah, currently leaving unanswered because no needs more info, kinda, and yeah, I don't think there's anything actionable right now for us there. Document how to publish from other CI providers. GitHub CI is what's that? This is documentation work. This would then be using tokens manually that you can get in the UI dashboard. But wait. Looks like dry run does not check dependency versions. This looks pretty bad. I'll bring this up to Luca immediately because, yeah, multiple bumps on issues that were ignored. This is not good. Slow types feel opinionated. Well, slow types are slow types. There's a long discussion if you want to follow here. This is necessarily not something that's going to change. Quite simple. Button workspace dependency is not resolved. I guess we don't support button workspaces. Something that could be fixed probably, but this would be something that David needs to work if that's the case. Oh, well, David says it works for him, but I guess there's ongoing discussion. Well, not actively ongoing. I'll ask David what's this about exactly. Then untagged template later incorrectly marked as slow types. Again, the slope data issue. Not gonna go into that. Wrong error with default exports expression as type. I guess that's also potentially a slow type related issue. David's assigned to it. Require publishing from CI for packages. Okay, yeah, so currently we support requiring republishing from CI for packages, but rather for scopes. There is no way to toggle the setting on a package level. This is definitely something we should do, and it's something I've encountered as well in the recent times that I wanted to publish a package to a scope that had that enabled. So ideally, yeah, this seems like something we should do. Not sure why it's set to needs a plan, but yeah, would just require setting, adding a database column on the packages table and checking that. If it's specified, else fall back to the scope level one. I think that's a reasonable approach. Then, show whether modules sync or not. That's, yeah, this seems quite difficult. Not sure how we can achieve that. If what's the, let's see, the use case, Node.js will support requiring of sync ESM soon. Oh, okay. So I guess we would want to indicate if this would be a syncable, of requiring, it's a requirable module or rather package. Tricky. Not sure. Yeah, as Luca mentions, this could be quite complicated. And honestly, not the biggest fan of require ESM, and also we're an ESM first registry, so require is already kind of out of scope to some degree, but I'm gonna keep this open to let Luca decide on this further if he wants to. But this is quite an old issue already, like over a year. Yeah, not sure. It's probably, yeah, it's low priority, so not gonna put the press into this. And let's get to the next page. Let's do a few here, and then we already have to wrap the meeting in a moment. Just gonna quickly ask, anyone does have any topics they wanna bring up again, or any questions or anything? Else I'll continue with a few more issues to triage. Nope. Okay. Well, if you do, just interrupt. Last heading in README is first line table of contents. I need to rework the table of contents logic. It's absolutely terrible. Currently, the way it works, it goes through all the like all the types of sections we have, and it's not really reliable system, and it causes issues like this. Basically, we kind of need to unify the generating of the of the heading of the document navigation or table of contents based on what we render, which we currently don't do. This is not necessarily simple, and also overall our table of contents seems to be relatively buggy. I've encountered some other issues recently, so it needs probably a full rework for the table of contents, which probably not too much work. If anyone wants to try this, feel free to. This is probably quite involved, and it's in DODoc. Support TSDoc and UNODoc and DTS emit. Yeah, this is a really complicated issue. This requires us to writing a parser ourselves for JSDoc and kind of work together into SWC, because I believe SWC does not have a way to do fragments. Basically, what we would want is parse out a piece of JSDoc, let me open the issue, for example, a type, and then make that be a part of the SWC graph in some way or another by telling SWC that there's a fragment of code here that it should like know about. But I believe SWC does not have a way or an API for this, so this is tricky. We would have probably to implement something ourselves for that to be supported. This is also a really complicated and big project. It would make JSR much nicer though for non-type dependencies and non-type packages, or also for packages that have types, but still use JSDoc/DSDoc in some scenarios. Input map does not work, but if I use DOJSON, it all works fine. Let's see what's this about. I use just JSON and input map JSON in my library. Yeah, so JSR JSON, input map JSON. Um, yeah, let's see. Okay, this is partially a bug on us and partially a documentation issue. Um, Definitely something that needs to be improved. Basically, right now we won't auto-discover input map.json, and JSR.json does not specify the input map keys to be supported. So something we should expand on, but we're not gonna auto-discover multiple configuration files for JSR itself. Yeah, so I guess we would have to specify JSR.json to support input map keys, which I think is a reasonable thing to do. Okay. Not very eventful set of issues today or discussion, but I mean, we continued with the issue triage. We're now at issue 503. And I would say we're gonna finish the meeting here. We're already at 31 minutes. If anyone has anything they want to bring up one more time, now's the time. I'll wrap up the meeting. No? Okay. Then I'll see you again in, I guess, 2 weeks. Have a good one, everyone. See you around.
See you, Leo.